In this episode, we will visit one of the most northern parts of Scotland, the Isle of Lewis in the Hebrides. 2000 years ago, when Julius Caesar invaded England, he probably wondered how to conquer and climb the white cliffs of Dover. But he succeeded to conquer England, but the Picts and the Scots were just one bridge too far for him. So during the Roman Emperor Hadrian, the Romans followed an old strategy. They isolated Scotland with a wall, the Hadrian Wall. This wall was 117 kilometers long and the last frontier of the mighty Roman Empire. The Emperor Hadrian visited the wall several times and was beloved by his soldiers. Now, if you are brave enough to pass this ancient border and suffer a wild boat ride, we will reach the Upper Hebrides. If you like terrible stormy rainy weather, big waves, longhorn cows, well, let's admit he's cute, and cold, wet, stormy weather, you came to the right place. Because we will visit the Isle of Lewis and take a look at the Standing Stones of Callanish, a circle of big menhirs with a secret tomb in the middle. Later I will tell you more about these stones, but for now they will be the topic for our next painting. My name is Michael Schutte and thank you for watching Painting the Island. Hello and welcome back in my studio. To save some time, I already made a foundation of ochre tones because today we're gonna do a sunset. A sunset with flames in the sky and tons of stones, because we're gonna paint the Standing Stones of Callanish in Scotland in the Outer Hebrides. I practiced on that word. As always, we have a lot to do, so at work. As always, sunsets are tricky. If you have painted with me before, you know that the start always hurts your eyes. Every human being has a different view on the colors of a sunset. On a photo, it's accepted, but in a painting, it's better to make the screaming reds and oranges a bit more pastel. And every television or computer monitor is different of colors. So yes, sunsets are tricky, but so fun to do. I started with a yellow ochre and alizarin crimson mix, but this time I did a bit more alizarin crimson as we are in a sunset. Above the first layer we can paint a more orange layer, and it's up to you how orange you want to make it. Then we going in to the blues. We can paint a light phthalo blue mix, titanium weight with a little touch of cadmium yellow light, which looks horrible at the moment, I know, because it curses with the warm orange color. But we will have to look ahead. You will see how it all fits together further in the painting. It will be that dirty bluish glow what you see in most of the sunsets peeping through the clouds. So we have to be brave and just put your brain on zero and just do it. Because it's getting worse, believe me. I made a stronger mix by adding more phthalo blue and just fill in the blank spaces with soft crisscross brushstrokes. By the way, I used the indestructible 1-inch brush from Uncle Bob. I'm not allowed to make any ads, but I think you know what I mean. On the top layer we can add a bit of bluish gray and some purple. It will look even worse, but don't you worry, it will be good at the end. I always say this a few times in the lessons because this is the point where lots of students get frustrated and might panic because they cannot see where it's going through. In Holland we say the courage is sacking in their shoes. So this time you have to trust me and get in trouble, as we're always joking. And you just saw me painting left-handed. Yes, if the purple hurts your eyes, we can add a bit of the light ochre mix to blush it down a bit. To relieve the stress, we will first paint a screaming sun glow on 1/3 of the horizon with a mix of titanium white and a tiny tip of cadmium yellow light. With a soft filbert brush, we fade it into the wet underpaint. And then we can start bringing in little faraway clouds with a purple blushed down with a light ochre tone mix. And as these clouds are in the background, we keep them all soft. We mix titanium white with the purple, and like I said, I add some of the ochre tones to it till your eyes are happy with the result. And it's so funny, when we make with our students a sunset, I see a great number of different purples. Not one is the same. Every human being has a different feeling about these almost surrealistic tones. On the top, we can go more aggressive with a darker purple tone. I load the filbert brush, both sides, and push the paint into the wet underground. After that, we fade it softly in. And yes, this method works only wet in wet. We can do it on a dry layer, but believe me, wet and wet works always fantastic. And if it's getting a bit too muddy, like here, just fade it in with a dry, clean brush. You will see that the red glow will peep through the transparent paint. Usually, I fade the lower part of the cloud in, or out, and get rid of the hard edges and leave the upper side all alone. Let's do the same with the other side with the painting, and we make the same moves over there. On top we press hard, and below almost no pressure. And we use a combination of purple and a bit of light ochre tone to blush it down. It will blend in nicely into the wet paint, but if it gets too muddy, clean your brush, blend it in softly with very soft moves. On top, we go on with darker tones. This will give the painting a perspective effect. The soft tones will lead the eye far into the painting, and above our head we see the dark clouds coming in. Just move forward and see how you can put the cloud clusters together. Use your fantasy and let the brush do its work. I always say, let them play a kind of game. Let them chase each other, stable them up, and so on. Just like I said, use your fantasy. Try always to have two colors on your brush, like I said, the purple and the ochre tone, and see how that works. The magical light is peeping through that purple color. And let the dark tones pass by the light tones, like here. It will push the light tones to the back. And then it might be cool to paint some backlight at the lower part of the clouds, because the light is coming from below. First set it up and then fade it softly in. Let's go to the other side. In the left corner, we can really make it dark with a very dark purple tone. Now, sorry for the glitching, but this is happening because of the studio lights. And yes, I try to avoid it, but even when I push down the canvas or let the light shine from a different corner, nothing worked. And it's always this particular corner. Okay, one more thing. Now you see me suddenly painting with a different color without putting the brush into, let's say, an orange tone. Do I have a magical brush? No way. I wish I had. I think I explained it before, but especially for all the newcomers on the island, I will explain it again. As I do the filming and editing for this show myself, I try to cut away all unnecessary moves as much as possible. Believe me, you don't want to see my big black arm sweeping over your big screen all the time. And yes, it's a lot of extra work, but I think it looks much better. And as we have an hour for the show now, we don't have to speed up like crazy anymore. So that's all very positive. Yes, I speed up a bit, otherwise you have to watch this show for 6 hours. And that's a little bit too much, I think, for the patients. But we are doing pretty good for now. With a highlight color and a small round brush, we can decorate our sky with some silver linings. Hold the brush at the end of the shaft, just shake it and he will do the work for you. So easy is it. We can also do a bit of orange here and there. Anyway, it's up to you how much light you want to add to the sky. For me, the more light the better. A sunset is surrealistic anyway, so almost everything is possible. With a filbert brush, we can give the lower part of the clouds a warm backlight. The glow of the sun is coming from below, so let's give the lower part of the clouds that glow, and we can use a red ochre tone. So it's the same ochre tone we always use in skies, but we add a bit more alizarin crimson to it. Closer to the sun, it will be more orangey. So, like something like this. This is the end of part 1. I will see you back in part 2. Welcome back in part 2 of the episode Painting the Island, the Standing Stones of Callanish. Let's move on with the sky. Dark yellow with alizarin crimson and a bit of titanium white will give you the best orange, and it's always a good idea to make 3 different tones: dark, middle and a light tone, so you can improvise in between. We leave the sky for now and let it dry. As we need a sturdy foundation for the big standing stones, we will start painting the ground and hills. In the distance, we can paint some purple rolling hills to create a far-away feeling. On the ground in front of those hills, we can paint a lighter tone purple to create some mist. If we mix the purple with a bit of pure yellow ochre, we get a kind of dirty, far-away green, which fits great in this environment. There are not too many big hills over there, so we keep it glowing and rolling until we have enough movement in the distance. And pay attention how the colors seem to change as we add the dark foreground. Isn't that amazing? The light in the back seems suddenly brighter, and maybe a bit too bright. I will show you later what we can do about this. Maybe we can do an orange or red wash. We shall see. Let's first finish the foreground. I made 3 tones of my dirty purplish green: dark, middle and light. And then we start covering the space with long vertical brush strokes. We change dark and light as much as we can do to make this field uneven. This 5,000-year-old stone field has suffered a lot, so it has a lot of different colors too. First, we paint the dark ridges, and upon that we can do lighter indents and try to make as much variations as possible. I think we have to let it dry for a few days and take a little break and relax, because I'm gonna take you to Scotland and show you the real Standing Stones of Callanish. Enjoy! Long ago in 1977 I did my first road trip through England, starting in the south and all the way up to John O'Groats in Scotland and later to the Hebrides. And believe me, you don't want to watch my old Super 8 movies, so I asked 2 YouTube friends, John and Tara Newby, if we could use some of their travel clips. And here they are, working on their new camper, traveling all over the world, and this time in Scotland. Here we followed a couple on their way to Lewis Island, taking a ferry like this to Harris Island first. Well, on Vancouver Island we know everything about ferries. But the views are fantastic. And John, Tara, and the baby are having a real good time. Then we have to do a few straight long roads, and the sunsets are amazing. And we have to watch out for the sheep, they are everywhere. I only miss a few trees, but trees don't make any chance in this harsh climate with the salty cold winds and storms. One more ferry to pick, and then they are on Lewis Island, where a fantastic camping site is waiting for our traveling family. The next day we going to the village of Callanish, and there we find a big ring of standing up menhirs, 5,000 years old and still going strong. Later I will tell you a bit more about the secret tomb in the middle of the ring. 5,000 years ago there were people living in this cold and harsh environment. They started building these kind of circles, first from wood, later these giant menhirs of 3 meters high. The question is, how did they do it and why did they do it? They didn't have any drag lines, tractors, no way. Just did it with the bare hands, but that seems almost impossible. The scientists Alexander Thom and Gerald Hawkins thought that the stones were a prehistoric lunar observatory, as there are a great number of these rings on Lewis Island. And we might think of a religious or ritual activity. Suddenly, around 1500 BC, the stones were abandoned and not used anymore, except by these birds who have a great lookout how to catch the next lunch. The stones were covered for thousands of years by turf and peat, but around 1850 the site was cleaned up and scientists started to solve the secrets of the tomb in the ring. Lots of pottery fragments were found in the tombs, also arrowheads and scrapers. The so-called beaker people were able to create strong, beautiful beakers. And as the beaker people cremated their passed away family, there were only a few burnt bones found in the tombs. John Toland, another scientist, thought that the 12 menhirs represented the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the 19 stones of the avenue or long road represent the 19 points of the solar cycles. And we can go on like this. The truth is, nobody will ever know for sure. In the meantime, John and Tara are crossing the island, almost crushed by a herd of longhorns and enjoying the rough coast, who's not really a safe swimming beach. And passing the butt of Lewis Lighthouse, the weather is not improving. Now listen to John.
Just can't predict. We've been looking on our Apple weather app every day, every morning, and basically it's just a curtain of rain for the foreseeable future, for forever, every single day. It's simply not true. We've had sunshine.
A curtain of rain every day, well, you don't want to hear that on your holiday. But it keeps the grass growing and no chance of forest fires, so that's the positive side of it. And if you are looking for a cheap house with $1 million view, you came to the right place. I admit, it needs a bit of work and a good painting job, but there's no traffic, no noise, only you and the fantastic nature. Close by the stones you will find Nageranan. I probably pronounce it totally wrong, but I do my best. A wonderful open-air museum village. In 1974, the residents were forced to leave the village and moved into council houses. The village was left abandoned to collapse. However, in the 80s it was renovated. 10 years later it was completed, and you will get a great impression how people lived here for hundreds of years. You can even stay here for a few days and enjoy the spirits of the past. Harsh circumstances, bad weather, but an absolute unique experience. And you don't get lost, there's only one road. Then it's time for John and Tara to say goodbye.
We enjoyed every moment of our trip to the Outer Hebrides and would like to thank the islanders for being so welcoming and the little explorers for showing us around. We will be back.
Thank you, John and Tara, and we will be back for sure too. And thank you, Kelly, from History with Kelly. Check her program out, it's very interesting, and she is a real good singer too. Now, lots of my students ask me how to do a wash. Well, as I want more red in the sunset, this might be the time to show you how to do a wash. I made a mix of medium, a lot of medium, and a small amount of alizarin crimson. With very thin brush strokes, we can add the very wet transparent paint over the dry surface. No pressure, and I think it will work great. Suddenly the highlight sun is really blopping out of the scene, and that is what we want. With a soft purple tone, we can give the lower clouds another layer too and see how it all melts together. I put a bit of the light ochre tone into the purple, and this will make it all softer. We don't want screaming purple tones in the distance. Now let's give the sun a bit more power. With a mix of titanium white and dark yellow or yellow hue, we can create an extremely strong highlight. And that's what we need in between those stones, who are still not there, but they will show. But in this case, in this painting, it's really important that we finish the complete background as much as we can before we start painting all those stones. There's nothing worse than doing a background in between stones, believe me. If you're happy with the result, we can do more decorations of light in the sky. Silver linings are always the magic in a sunset. With a small round brush, we can use the lightest ochre tone, and closer to the sun, we can sure do the highlight color we created of the dark yellow. Push the bristles softly into the wet underlayer, and sometimes we can use the pinky to do some finger painting. This works great when the underlayer is a bit too dry, like here in the upper clouds. First, we do more silver linings, and always remember where the light comes from below. First paint little parts and then use your pinky. Don't use any other finger, the pink always works best. It has the best light pressure of all your other fingers. I was a small kid in Amsterdam, finger painting was highly popular among the youth. And yes, I loved it too. Me and my friends. I think we were 5 years old. We painted the front door of our neighbors when they left for vacation. Of course, we didn't tell our parents. It was our little secret. And really, Picasso would have been proud of us. That boring front door suddenly had all the colors of the rainbow. So we never understood why everybody, including my parents and the neighbor, were so terribly angry with us. Finger painting a boring front door, come on. It looked so pretty in our eyes, the eyes of a 5-year-old. And yes, I still feel the spanking of my father, which we received as a reward for creating a high standard, misunderstood piece of art created by 3 5-year-old master painters. So me and my little friends, we learned early that good art is not always appreciated. And me? Well, my young upcoming artist heart was dark and broken, so I took revenge. I put a wet palette full of fresh colors in my father's lazy television chair. And I won't tell you what happened then, because his lines won't pass the censorship of this TV show. But his butt was just as colorful as the neighbor's door. And I had to hide away. But My creepy little sister betrayed me, and my father found me hiding under the stairs. And probably I had not survived his rage, but my mother jumped in between us, saved me, and locked me away in my bedroom till the thunderstorm cooled down. So thank you for listening to this little childhood trauma of a starving artist. In the meantime, I repaired the purple faraway mountains, and I made the front mountains a bit darker so they really pop out. I think we created a blazing sunset. You almost need your sunglasses. We leave it alone for a few days, and yes, we're gonna paint stones. Big stones. I made a very light sketch as a composition, and with a small round brush we can start at the right side of the ring. I lean my hand on the palette stick to bring the muscles at ease, and the first thin stone is appearing in the misty field. He is thin, and we keep him a bit bleach using a lighter gray with a touch of purple, because he is farther away. His big brother is more sturdy, but we don't go too dark yet. This is how we create a perspective depth. I will show you more in the third part of the episode, The Standing Stones of Callanish. See you then. Welcome back. This is the third part of the episode, The Standing Stones of Callanish. It would be very boring if we give them all the same color strength. Later, we always can make it a bit more rough, but first, let's get all blank spaces covered. All these stones have their own specific shape. Some people see a face, some see animal shapes, and a lot of these stones were carved too. Now, during the 2000 years that they were covered with turf and peat, it bleached them out, but protected them also. During the ages, some parts of these stones were used for house building. We see the same in Holland, where parts of castles or city walls were used for house building also. Stones were expensive, always during the ages, so it's understandable that they were reused. And this will bring us to the next question. Where did they find these giant big rocks in a world of peat, mud and turf? Well, maybe on the coast, where a decent bunch of rock near the beaches. They call it gneiss. But then again, how did they transport it? And how do you drag a 7-ton stone over mud and peat, and how do you raise it up? Well, it seems that 30 people were necessary to raise up a stone like this. On the average, these stones were or are 3 till 4 meters high, and they weigh about 7 tons, like I said before. Very interesting is the so-called avenue, an original of 39 stones, and by the way, only 19 are left. Now, there is something creepy going on with this avenue. Listen to this. Every 18.6 years, there is a declination of the moon, or popular said, the moon falls still on this moment. The central line of this lane is pointed on that particular point. How did they know this? Shall I tell you some more? There's another row of stones which aims on the Pleiades group of stars. How could they know about this? And they were not alone in those times. The Navajos in the USA called them Dilahe, the house of the black god. Who was that? They believed that some people were related with people from the Pleiades. As a big fan of the ancient Greek mythology, I love this story the best. Upper god or President Zeus placed 7 sisters in the sky. One of the sisters had a night out with a mortal guy, not even a half-god. Okay, it can happen. But the poor girl was pregnant, and Zeus was not amused. As a punishment, he made her star not as bright as the rest of her sister stars. Her name is Merope, the poor girl. However, the star Seleno is even more blurry and has the nickname the Lost Pleiad. So yeah, those girls were pretty naughty, just as common people. Now let's move on with the stones, because we got a lot of stone work to do. We try to follow the silhouettes as good as we can, but if it's a bit different, no problem. Closer by the sun, we go darker. We leave the small ones in the distance a bit blurry. It's just an optical trick. But we won't make this one completely dark, as in every dark is always some light. And later we will come back to add some more structure, and maybe we will do this with the knife. For the middle rock, we go almost black, because he catches the heart of the sun, but not completely black. And by the way, there's another secret of all these standing stone rings like Stonehenge and so on. On a certain time in a year, and it is, I don't know which time that is, but the sun is peeping through right in the middle of the ring, exactly halfway the biggest stones. Who invented this and why? And again, we will never know. I go a little bit further. On this island, the Isle of Lewis, is a whole bunch of these rings, named Callanish 1, Callanish 2, Callanish 3, and so forth. In total, there are, or were, 11 rings. But the first, this one, which we're painting, this is the most complete. So yeah, making these rings was 5,000 years ago very popular among the population. So maybe it was a game, a sport, a competition, and there we go again, we will never know. It's getting repetitive. But they knew what they were doing. The druids of those tribes had a lot of knowledge and power. They knew about stars, nature, mathematics, maybe a bit about magic. I don't believe they had magical rings like in Asterix and Obelix, but druids were a high-ranking class in the ancient Celtic cultures. They were religious leaders, legal authorities, adjudicators, what a word, law keepers, medical professionals, and political advisors, but they left no written accounts. That is a pity, but we know for sure that even the head of the tribe always asked for advice to the tribe druid for whatever was needed. Maybe a common advice for a coming up battle against the Romans. Anyway, you don't want a druid as your enemy. Good, enough about druids and magic. But it's fun. The stones are moving forward. The middle one is really dark because he's almost standing right before the sun, and the other one will be even darker. Down below, where the stones touch the grass, they can be a bit darker. Moist and mud have left as scars in these stones. I must not think what a work it must have been to remove 2,000 years peat, or make it 3,000 years, peat and turf, what's stapled up for almost 2 meters. But everybody worked hard to remove the peat, and they did a real good job cleaning it all up. And thanks to the work of those workers or volunteers, we can enjoy 5,000 years of history. And when I was there, I always liked to touch a stone, which I did. See if you feel something of the energy of the person who raised these giant menhirs. I did the same with Hadrianus' wall. I was standing there and looked over the wall and all the forts, and imagine how those little from cold shivering Italians who loved their sun were standing in opposite of those giant, horrible painted Scottish tribes who were able to do an impressive guerrilla war. It was David against Goliath. and David won. For the first time, the Romans couldn't defeat these mighty warriors, and they were not giving in to let these brutal, cruel bunch of murderers take their land. So as we might notice, in 5,000 years nothing changed. I read the diary of Julius Caesar, The Gallic Wars. It's a very interesting book, but it shows how cruel Romans treated their defeated cities. Everybody, kids, women, old people, were killed or taken away as slaves. No wonder that after collapsing the Roman Empire, all great inventions and techniques like city water and sewer systems, central heated houses, building highways, bridges, and so forth was all destroyed and forgotten for another 2,000 years. This was how deep hatred was settled in victims. The Romans, however, never made it to these faraway remote islands, so the population could go on in their simple but calm living conditions. Now, wouldn't it be cool to step back 5,000 years and take a look how it really was? Let's do it with our time traveler. And you will see this in the last and fourth part of the episode The Standing Stones of Callanish. Welcome back, this is Michael Schutte for the fourth part of the episode The Standing Stones of Callanish. Have fun with our time traveler. It's time to check out the history of the Callanish stones. We go 5,000 years back in time, so let's jump in the old book and let's go. So these are the Standing Stones of Callanish. Well, pretty impressive. I wonder where they come from and how did they raise these huge menhirs which have the size of a city bus. Well, I guess only the spirits of the past will know.
Did you call me, sir? Well, let me tell you that this was a space station. We were observing the Earth for a long time, and we still do.
A long time? A long time, you say? Are you spying us? And why are you doing that?
Hey, may I ask what you lads are doing here in my stones? Do I hear about spies? I will smash your brains. I don't like English spies.
Hello, Bridge. Hello, Bridge. LZ is getting hot. Too hot. We have to shut the back door. Beam me up, Scotty.
Beam me up, Scotty? That sounds very familiar now. This cannot be true. But that guy is gone. This is magic. You must be a magician.
William, leave those lads alone and go milking the cows for dinner. No!
But Leslie, I have to smash his head first.
William, I said no, or I will smash your head.
Okay, Lassie, I will be back, lad. Don't go nowhere. Those women, always complaining. Always complaining.
5,000 years ago was not really a relaxing time. I'm out of here. Toodaloo. So, we're back and in one piece. I dive in my tent, Ducky. I've had it for today. Good night.
So this is 2022. Let's see how it all looks like before we return to the Pleiades. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, with a bit of fantasy, we can make the most fantastic stories. And I love to do animation. Let's move on with the painting. And we are busy making interesting shadows. With a mix of dark green, we can try to make heavy shadows and do it in a perspective way. So you could draw a few pencil lines from the sun if you want that, and imagine that the light is coming from that sun. And that makes sense, right? and the result will give a very strong perspective feeling. Maybe a bit spooky, but okay, it works. And we can use the fan brush with on one side a light tone and on the other side a darker tone green. And to stay in the same sunset mood, we can add a bit of purple to it. The right technique with a fan brush is shaking it first with the dark color and then shake the light tone in where necessary. The fan brush works always great to make grounds rough or grassy. We are now going roughly over it. Just give it a bit more structure. And we can put up later some more grasses with a small round brush and do that on our ease when it's dry, otherwise it's getting too soapy. For now we just shake the brush and try to make a strong perspective with dark and light. Personally, I love strong compositions like these. It's so different than other middle of the day colors. I prefer to take my photos early in the morning or late in the afternoon, early evening. For a painter, these are the most interesting times of the day with a good lightfall and excellent colors. Now sunsets like these are a bit over the top, I admit, and you don't want to do them all the time, but it has something magic that we can create out of nothing, a scene where you almost can feel and touch the objects. Far away we can put a bit more misty green by adding a tiny bit of grey to the green, which I usually never do, but here it works. And now it's time for some knife work. We take a little roll of orange on the knife and scratch it softly downwards over the wet grey paint of the white stone. And see how he comes to life by adding just a few scratches. We're gonna do the same with the big one in the front, but don't overdo it, otherwise the effect is gone. If it happens, you always can go back with some dark. Which I might do for this one, I still don't know. We hold the knife in between two fingers and let it go dancing over the wet surface. Don't push and no pressure. I repeat it often, it's always a good idea to practice a lot with a knife. The first few times it won't do what you want, but that is perfectly normal. At the start, you load it too heavy or you push too hard. It happened to me, believe me, and it doesn't work. Well, if you ever need some help, drop me a line and I will show you the right techniques. These episodes are no tutorials. I mentioned this before, but for the many newcomers on the island, I will repeat it again. These episodes are made to give you an impression what you can do with oil paint. And of course, I like to tell you a bit about history. I do this as a volunteer, but I love to teach people and bring some joy in their life. And of course, we try to support protecting wildlife, and in particular the North Island Wildlife Recovery Center in Errington, where I already painted a lot of their regular guest animals. It's always fun to do. And again, if you want to know more, drop me a line or take a look at our website. Before we say goodbye, I would like to show you our Academy of Music and Art in Qualicum Beach. I teach there music and art, and my wife Els card making and scrapbooking. I would love to show you my paintings just to get some inspiration, and I understand that for a lot of you Qualicum Beach is not next door, but if you happen to be on Vancouver Island, just hop in for a chat and take a look around. And of course you are always welcome if you need some advice about materials, maybe color mixing, or whatever you want to know about art and music. My sweet wife Els is a magician with paper, and she shows a great selection of scrapbooking and paper art. And don't forget that we offer a wide range of courses in music, painting, scrapbooking and card making. Yes, there is a whole new world, a whole new creative world for you right at your fingertips. Our steady viewers might know by now that I love to support the North Island Wildlife Recovery Center in Errington with my paintings. This place, founded by Sylvia and Robin Campbell, is a lovely retreat for wounded birds and other animals who need recovery and help. Also a lovely place for inspiration. So if you ever visit the island, take a look in the center and admire all the wonders of nature. Enjoy! Yes, it's always a very relaxing place to be and get some inspiration for new paintings. As my studio lights were really glittering over the wet paint, I decided to put a light wash of grey over the light edges, just to tone them down a bit. Yes, painting under studio lights is always a bit of a challenge, but I think it looks better. Now let's make these two stones a bit darker as they stand right in front of the sun. But we try to keep the rough structure, and of course we want those light edges where they are needed. Let's make these two stones a bit darker as they stand right in front of the sun. But try to keep the rough structure, and of course we want those light edges where they are needed. Painting stones is always very relaxing, although I love it. Beneath the stones we can paint some outstanding weeds and grasses just to cheer it up. It makes the painting a bit more lively, and for us it's a great way to play with light and dark. We use that same mix of ochre and black to keep it dull. We don't want a sparkling May green on this place. But just go ahead and we can make the grass a bit more lively also. The shadows and light beams gives this painting a strong perspective and a bit of spooky, surrealistic feeling. And this was just the effect we were looking for. In combination with a flaming sunset sky, we might say that this painting is finished. Try for yourself a couple of sunsets and drop me a line showing your artwork. Thank you for watching Painting the Island and enjoy the painting. Oh, one more thing. Let's ask Crusoe Newbie, the youngest traveler in the world, about his meaning of this exciting episode full of adventure. Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, that's enough. Thank you. Thank you. The Standing Stones of Callanish are finally standing. We went through a lot of history, but we had a lot of fun too. I hope you liked it. Check out our website. Till the next time, and as we always say, keep on painting.